Would you all please be seated? When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and that you must live your life inside the world, and try not to get into too much trouble, and maybe get an education, and get a job, and make some money and have a family. But life can be a lot broader than that when you realize one simple thing, and that is that everything around us that we call life was made up by people who are no smarter than us, and we can build our own lives that other people can live in. Don't live a life, build one. The proceeding was originally stated by the one and only Steve Jobs, a man who has simultaneously carried the titles of CEO and failed entrepreneur. But I'll get back to him later. Good morning, friends. It's so great to stand before you today. Ever since attending my first chapel speech last year, I've looked towards this moment with both thrill and trepidation. I clearly remember that first speech. The speaker, whom I believe is now off in England studying fine arts, discussed what, in her opinion, were 3 keys to success. Now that it's my turn, I would also like to discuss 3 things. I use the general term, things, because these items do not fall under any particular category. They are by no means keys to success, or surefire signs of imminent failure, or even great moral truths of any kind. By all accounts, they're just things. First, I would like to explore the importance of keeping an open mind, as illustrated through 2 stories. The first being a Buddhist parable known simply as maybe. Many moons ago, there lived an old farmer and his son. One morning, the man woke up to find that his most prized horse had escaped. Upon hearing this grim news, several neighbors came over to extend their condolences. "Oh, how unfortunate," they all said. But instead of seconding their melancholy demeanor, the old man simply replied, "Maybe yes, maybe no." Several days later, the horse returned to the farm, bringing with it 2 new wild horses. As such, the neighbors congratulated the farmer. "How fortunate," they exclaimed. To this he replied once again, "Maybe yes, maybe no." The following afternoon, the son was riding one of the new horses when suddenly the creature began to buck. The young man fell violently to the ground and broke his arm. Horrified, the neighbors expressed their sympathies yet again, and the farmer responded once more with an ambivalent, "Maybe yes, maybe no." And, as fortune would have it, the town was visited shortly thereafter by 2 government officers recruiting for the army. Under normal circumstances, the brawny son would have been a first-choice recruit, but due to his injury, he was asked to stay behind. Once more, people couldn't help but comment, "Who would have thought," they said, "that such tragedy would bring such great reward?" And to this, the man simply answered, "Maybe yes, maybe no." My second story on this topic is more of a personal anecdote. Not too long ago, my mom began training for her first full marathon. She had been running half marathons for over 15 years and was looking forward to this next big step up in her running career. Her ultimate goal was to run the Boston Marathon, and as such, she was first required to run a qualifying race. After culminating a rigorous 10-month-long training season, she ran the Toronto Waterfront Fall Marathon, only to miss her qualifying time by 3 minutes. But, as it always must, the show went on. A few months later, qualified runners traveled from every corner of the earth to prove themselves capable of this incredible athletic feat. This time, however, some were robbed of this opportunity. I'm referring, of course, to the recent Boston Marathon tragedy. Later that same day, my mom and I discussed that strange stroke of luck that had hit her when she had failed to make her times. But there was something more. Based on her pace during her training season, she would have been right at the finish line when the bombs went off. In other words, what had seemed to be the greatest letdown had in fact been a life-saving blessing in disguise. So as that sinks in, allow me to move on to my second thing, Ashton Kutcher. Other than being really talented and somewhat ridiculously good-looking, a recent speech of his proved him to be quite the wise soul as well. Among many thought-provoking statements, Kutcher declared, "I believe opportunity looks a lot like hard work." He admitted his gratitude for these opportunities, saying he was always lucky just to have a job, and every job he had was a stepping stone to his next job, and he never quit his current job until he had his next job. And so opportunities look a lot like hard work. This summer, I worked my first real job as a dishwasher at Camp Panaca. During previous camp experiences, I always recognized that meals were ready and available when we sat down to eat, but hadn't put much thought into how the food actually got to be there. I never took the effort to find out what really happened behind those mysterious kitchen doors. For years, I had lived this way. I got my first glimpse of the truth in the span of a few days. Waking up before sunrise, drowsily pulling on sweatpants and a hoodie, venturing out of the cabin to face the crisp sting of the morning air, sitting down with a bowl of cereal and a cup of steaming hot coffee to discuss the game plan for the day, going table by table, setting the required cutlery in the appropriate spots, fork on the left, knife and spoon on the right, glass in the top right corner above the plate, filling up the napkin basket, realizing there are no napkins left in the kitchen, running out to grab more napkins, finishing my row of tables first and feeling somewhat accomplished, realizing voyagers are on trip, unsighting their table, hearing the shuffling of feet outside the dining hall doors, quickly distributing a hot chocolate jug to each table as campering staff begin to file into the building. And then came the actual dishwashing part. They would come in slowly at first, but arrive faster and faster as the end of the meal approached. It was a 5-step process. Wash, rinse, a run through the industrial strength dishwashing machine, dry, and put the dish or utensil back where it belonged. Sometimes the stacks of plates were so high that we couldn't see the little camper who was handing them to us. But as we scrubbed away, there was no time for pessimism. Our only goal was to get through the load so that we might possibly have time for a break. Finally, after getting through plates, bowls, cups, forks, knives, spoons, spatulas, trays, and serving bowls, we were done with the breakfast dishes. 3 times a day, we repeated the same process, although it varied depending on the meal. Some meals were more dish-heavy, so it took us longer to clean, and we had less time to unwind. At staff evening snacks, the counselors would often challenge us to a game of cards, but we were usually too tired to do something requiring that much thinking. When we finally climbed into bed, we were asleep in a matter of seconds. I have a lot of memories from my Panaca experience. Those occasional 14-hour workdays, that time when the electronic mixing bowl came off its hinges and splattered mashed potatoes everywhere. But out of all the crazy things that went down in that kitchen, there's one that sticks with me above all else. You're all smart people. If you weren't, you wouldn't be here. I therefore find it redundant to tell you how fortunate we all are to be in our current circumstances and to have the opportunities that we have. Yet I must, because there's no limit to how grateful one can be. Gratitude, the quality of being thankful, readiness to show appreciation for and to return kindness. It may seem like a pretty simple idea, but as I've learned, its impact can be greatly overlooked. There were days this summer when I was running on 3.5 hours of sleep, a shot of caffeine, and pure adrenaline. Needless to say, gratitude was not my default state of mind. But then, thank you. A voice would rise from behind the kitchen counter. It belonged to a little first-time camper, or a returning international camper from Mexico or Italy, or one of the camp directors. Regardless of the speaker, those 2 words were enough to make the whole experience, the crazy schedule, the aching muscles, everything worthwhile. One counselor would, after every meal, stand in the doorway to the kitchen and yell to us in the most ridiculous of voices, The work you do is amazing. It was the weirdest thing, but it made us smile. When fortune falls in our favor time and time again, it becomes so easy to overlook the power a little gratitude can have. At Appleby, we're given so many opportunities to express ourselves through arts, academics, athletics. But most importantly, we have the means by which to do so. We owe this to a dynamic team of people, the kitchen staff, who plan and prepare all of our meals, and the janitors and maintenance staff, who keep our facilities tidy and functional. As such, every time I clear my dishes, or get served a delicious meal, or see Maria making sure Walker House is in tip-top shape, I say, thank you. Really, it's the least I can do to show my appreciation for what they do, because out of all the things I have to be grateful for, I am so incredibly grateful for these people. But most of all, I'm grateful for Camp Panaca, for giving me the truly humbling experience of dishwashing. So I promised you 3 things, didn't I? Well, I've taken up the vast majority of my time describing the first 2, but I'll briefly touch on the third. My third thing is fear. I was once taught that there are only 4 fundamental forces governing our universe: weak nuclear force, strong nuclear force, electromagnetic force, and the force of gravity. I would like to add fear to that list. Now, you science purists may contradict me, but until you show me a war started by gravity or an electromagnetic force preventing someone from proposing, I maintain my view. Everyone, at some point in their lives, must face fear. Pessimistic though it may sound, fear is one of the few qualities which unifies us as human beings. I spent a fair bit of time reflecting on my personal fears, and have come to the conclusion that there's one whose power is tenfold that of the others. My biggest fear is failure. There are days when I don't want to raise my hand in class for fear of being wrong and looking like I don't know what I'm talking about. There are nights when I don't want to get out on stage and sing for fear of hitting a wrong note. And there are mornings when I am ever so tempted just to stay in bed, curl up in a ball, and avoid the hardships of the real world. It's safe. No ill can come of you when you're hidden away from the pressures of existence. But the real question is it worth it? The truth is, we must often fail before we can succeed. Were it not for his being fired from his own company, Steve Jobs would have never left the legacy that he did. And were it not for a series of failures, I would have never arrived at Appleby College. So, a few concluding thoughts. Firstly and foremost, thank you for this opportunity. Secondly, as we head into the hectic flourish that precedes the December break, don't let fear take control of you. Maybe, just maybe, what now seems like your biggest failure may in fact be a turning point that will change your life for the better. And third, happy holidays, Appleby. Now would you all please rise and sing hymn number 575.